That's right. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Pakistani counterpart Nawaz Sharif are meeting on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit meeting in Ufa in Russia. This meeting between Mr. Modi and Sharif comes 8 months after they last met during the SAARC summit in Kathmandu. Prime Minister Modi is expected to raise the issue of Pakistan-backed terrorism and the constant ceasefire violations by the Pakistani Rangers. Also expected to raise the issue that Pakistan has released Zakir Rahman Lakhvi, one of the main accused in the 26/11 Mumbai attacks. What else is on the menu, of course, is what we are now discussing today in our studios. With me, Raj Chengappa, Editorial Director of Publishing of India Today, KC Singh, former envoy and diplomat with us, former Ambassador Rajiv Dogra with me, and Jyoti Malhotra of India Today also with me. Appreciate all of you joining us. But as we set the stage for this meeting and find out what is on the menu, let's just listen into all that Prime Minister Modi has said at various stages about Pakistan in the last 12 months. Something that suggests that we've had a blow-hot, blow-cold relationship. Listen in.
मैं पाकिस्तान से मित्रता और सहयोग बढ़ाने के लिए पूरी गंभीरता से शांतिपूर्ण वातावरण में बिना आतंक के साये के साथ द्विपक्षीय वार्ता करना चाहता हूं।
आप कल्पना कर सकते हैं, जो पाकिस्तान आए दिन हिंदुस्तान को परेशान करता रहता है, नाको दम ला देता है, टेररिज्म को बढ़ावा की घटनाएं घटती रहती है, 90,000 सैन्य उसके कब्जे में था। अगर विकृत मानसिकता होती तो पता नहीं निर्णय क्या करता। हमने बांग्लादेश के विकास की चिंता की, बांग्लादेश के स्वाभिमान की चिंता की, बांग्लादेश की धरती का उपयोग हमने पाकिस्तान पर गोलियां चलाने के लिए नहीं किया।
Okay, so that is the Prime Minister at various stages, reaching out to Pakistan but also sending out strong signals. KC Singh, you wanted to make the point about whether this is talk about talks or is there something more on the menu? Is there something specific in Ufa which will take this dialogue forward? From my point of view, maybe a cricket series starting in December between India and Pakistan in Dubai. But is there something more that we can expect in substantive terms on the critical issues?
Let's first explain to your viewers what is the composite dialogue. It's often talked about. It started with Gujarat in about 97, 98 and then carried on with Vajpayee and then subsequent governments. Composite dialogue had 8 boxes of issues, which, because it was India's view that everything must be discussed, and it was Pakistan's view that they can't discuss other issues unless you discuss Kashmir. So they create simultaneity. Now that obviously hasn't worked because the pace at which you can say move on commerce or people-to-people links, Pakistan holds it back. It wants to move on Kashmir. Now you can't move on Kashmir that rapidly. You can't mix disputes and confidence building. Now this is a classic problem that confidence building measures have to precede dispute resolution, not go side by side with it. So I think composite dialogue is dead. What you have to now do is, and a number of new issues have come up, water, Afghanistan, terrorism is much more prominent than say 15 years ago. The 2 prime ministers have to really, it's not a resetting, it's a recalibration of saying, how do we talk, what do we talk about, what are the new priorities, and create a new structure for it.
In this one meeting?
No.
In this one meeting? Does this meeting
no.
simply say that we are now leaving it to the foreign secretary to set the stage?
That will be done. The leadership
Rajiv,
is for...
can I just butt in here?
Yes, go ahead.
You know, one, there has been a stalemate.
Yes.
As he said earlier, Pakistan kept insisting on Kashmir, we said composite. Now what has happened is we've also got a one-point agenda on a lot of these talks. We say bring down terror.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will not talk. I think what we are seeing here is the beginning of a process to break that stalemate.
By bringing, what is the new element?
So then what you will do, I mean, there are 2 things. One, if you see in the last year or so, Narendra Modi has consolidated himself internationally. He is far more experienced than what he was when he started. Meanwhile, back home, Nawaz Sharif, after a very torrid time after he took over, has begun to have a new relationship with the army. The economy has improved considerably. The position in Afghanistan has changed. So you're seeing a complete change of the dynamics that was there earlier. And therefore, both sides are now recognizing that the situation is not the same. We need to take it to a new level. Now, if you look, if for instance, there is some forward movement, which is very easy for Pakistan to do, since Modi has made it a kind of a prestige issue on the Lakhvi business of, UN Security Council, taking it up with Xi when he met him in Ufa, all those things. Pakistan will have to meet that. Pakistan's thing is saying, let's get back to the dialogue process. You can call it composite, any nomenclature, but let's talk.
But what's the one issue? What is it that we want from the Pakistanis? What is it that Narendra Modi expects at the very minimum, or New Delhi expects at the very minimum from Pakistan?
What New Delhi expects at the very minimum from Pakistan is a talk without any obstacles, because that will raise India's stature, specifically Modi's stature in the world, that he has shown statesmanship by reaching out. But that is not going to
Obstacle
happen.
Meaning specifically?
Meaning that we do not get bogged down, as Casey said, on terrorism versus Kashmir issues, and we do not get into a tutu-mama slanging match. So basically, that is exactly what this talk may be headed to.
So you're saying trying to create a conducive atmosphere. Effectively, what we are saying, how do you create this atmosphere?
New terms of engagement.
For new terms of engagement. Let me get a Pakistani view. Tariq Pirzada joining me from Islamabad. Appreciate your joining us, sir. Good morning. What does Pakistan expect from India?
The end of the Ross-sponsored Indian intervention in Pakistan, and more importantly, the core issue of Jammu and Kashmir, which has to be resolved sooner. There are no more 68 years. This is the consensus in Pakistan. If you don't discuss Kashmir, this is the end of the story.
It's very interesting, Mr. Pirzada, you're saying what you are, because we are going back to Tutu Mehme, that RAW is involved in Baluchistan. We will tell you about how the ISI is sponsoring terror in Kashmir. Is that what you're talking of, an old term of engagement?
No.
The world is changing.
Come back to one point.
The world is changing, Mr. Pirzada. The world is changing, sir.
Since Casey is saying, you know the history of the relations between India and Pakistan. You know the reality. You know the last operative part of the Simla agreement says immediate resumption of negotiations on Kashmir at the highest level and at the secretaries and other levels of the two governments. It has been 40-some years. India has not done so.
Mr. Pirzada,
Mr. Pirzada, as an excuse. Just a second. Just a
minute. Sir, I don't want to get
terrorism as an excuse to stonewall these negotiations.
Mr. Pirzada, I don't want to get into a tutu-meme with you or with my Pakistani
why are you
friend.
using this word tutu-meme? I'm just talking about it.
No. Because you are using the word, you're saying that India must discuss Kashmir. India will turn around and first say, we want minimum guarantees that the 2611 accused are being prosecuted in a manner that...
They are being prosecuted. They know that.
That's not true. That's not true, sir. We are now in 2015, 7 years later, Mr. Lakhvi is walking as a free man in Pakistan.
You know what happened at the United Nations? You know what happened at the United Nations? Mr. Lakhvi's case has been shut down by the United Nations because India could not provide sufficient proof. You know that it just happened. The Chinese did not agree with you, and that was the end of the story. I'm not arguing on this issue. I'm trying to say, look, come to the table. You bring up the issue of terror and all other issues. We'll bring up the issues of Kashmir and, of course, the Ross-sponsored terrorism in Pakistan. And let's seriously discuss that without blaming each other.
Okay, so that's General Suhag, meanwhile, paying homage to the BSF martyr. Those are live pictures that are coming in, remember. And that really is it? Look at the two images. The image I'm playing out in the morning is of a BSF ranger, BSF soldier who's been
Are you
shot.
sure that's BSF?
That's right. He's come to pay homage to the BSF
Army chief.
soldier. The army chief has come to pay homage to the BSF soldier who was killed yesterday in Pakistani firing at the line of control. But there you're hearing Mr. Pirzada giving the traditional Pakistani viewpoint.
Not only that, Rajdeep, I think
let's be clear, these contrasting...
They are much more emboldened by the fact that the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, none other than the Chinese president, has told Prime Minister Narendra Modi only 24 hours ago in Ufa that we are not going to support you on the Zakir Umar Lakhvi case. The Chinese have said very clearly, and the Pakistanis...
So therefore today, if Prime Minister Modi, let's conceivably say, raises the issue of Lakhvi on the table, you can expect Prime Minister Sharif to say, look, the Chinese are supporting us also.
Not only that, I think Nawaz Sharif will also say that we have a rule of law inside our country, and it is the judge who let off Lakhvi. So he's going to wash his hands off.
So we are back to square one.
We are not only back to square one. We are not only back to square one, we're back to minus square one.
Okay, minus square one, but go ahead. Yes.
I think this is an indication from China. You see, they've gone forward on Lakhvi so that you don't raise their presence in POK. That doesn't become an issue. So they have diverted by going on to the Lakhvi issue. Now you're quarreling with Chinese on Lakhvi, not on POK, but not on the communication corridor they're creating.
As we see those images, Raj, playing out, can, you've seen this at close quarters. Can we ignore the fact that there will be, particularly in a party, when you are the leader of a party of the BJP, Narendra Modi is not just Prime Minister of India. He is the leader of a party called the BJP, which has always believed that you must be very wary of Pakistan, you must take a tough stand on terror. Therefore, today, if across the line of control there's firing, an Indian soldier is dead, just how much space for maneuverability does the Prime Minister really have?
Was it a political decision to send the army chief?
I don't know.
I think
army
so.
chief, because normally DG/BSF goes.
So therefore,
it has to be a political decision.
I think you see,
let Raj.
I think they've set some bare minimums on this already. One is that the LOC and that border should be peaceful. Without that, we can't move. Second, you have to have some movement on the Mumbai convicts that is there. You know, you're showing nothing on this. But let's not forget that India also has its cards. It's not that we played the Tibet card. When, we did offend China when we sent our Minister of State across for the celebrations that was there.
Union Minister for the Dalai Lama's
Dalai Lama's birthday celebrations. That was a clear indication that was there. Then let us also not forget what we said earlier about Myanmar. We may have goofed in terms of the kind of communication that we sent out, but we are pretty firm when it came to cross-border terrorism. So I think we have set certain bare minimums. Not that Modi is negotiating from a position of weakness when he gets there.
Jyoti Malhotra seems to suggest that we have actually gone minus, what was the word you used?
Minus square one.
Minus square one. We've gone a step back. You don't agree?
Step back in what?
Step back because we haven't got anything from the Pakistanis, and yet we've come to the dialogue.
But we are not. No, having engagement is not signing agreements.
That's a good point. Having engagement is not signing agreements.
Rajdeep, I will say that I think it's a very good thing that Narendra Modi or the Indian establishment has reached out to Pakistan and said, we would like to re-engage with you, we would like to start some sort of a dialogue, whatever you want to call it. And this is the message. And I think that's a very, very good thing. If Narendra Modi has realized that if he wants to be the leader of South Asia, remember, Narendra Modi these days, sort of travels around the world saying Barack, Tony, Vladimir. He wants to be a world leader, and all kudos to him. However, if he wants to be a world leader, Is Sharif
Nawaz for him, or is he Badmash for him?
We don't know yet.
Is it about Nawaz? I mean, let's be clear. This whole issue is raised of chemistry between leaders.
No, there is no chemistry.
There's no chemistry. Are we clear?
They don't know each other. Actually.
They don't know each other.
I mean, there was a very warm handshake last year when
because our Prime Minister likes to send out the message that he's building chemistry with leaders. He's done it with Obama. He's done it with even with the Chinese leadership. Does he have any kind of personal relation? Just a minute. Yes.
Well, why talk about Prime Minister Modi? Every Indian Prime Minister thinks that he'll set a new direction vis-a-vis Pakistan. Every Indian Prime Minister thinks that his predecessors were not able to do what he is going to do, and that is set a new line and a new chapter. Modi is following the same precedent, and Modi will fall into the same trap. As far as Modi-Sharif relationship is concerned, let me quote what General Kayani said about Nawaz Sharif. And he told the US ambassador, lady ambassador at that time, I don't trust Nawaz Sharif.
No, but what is that got to do with?
Just a minute. I just want to raise this issue since we are playing these pictures. You believe, Casey, because you've also served, at the highest levels in the president's office, and no one knows protocol better than you. The fact that the army chief has chosen to come and honor a BSF soldier killed on the border in Pakistani firing, you believe sends out a message today just ahead of this visit. Of the meeting.
I would think so. Normally you would find DG/BSF doing it. But for army chief to do, firstly you're treating the entire border as seamless. You're not saying international border and LOC. because their BSF is in front and army at the back, and there the army is in front. So this is a deliberate signal. I don't think a chief of army staff just happens to be there and goes to that.
Absolutely.
But I would just like to add to the earlier position that I was talking about in terms of the strong, some of the strong points that we have. Let's not forget that there is a historic government running in Jammu and Kashmir. And when my friend from Pakistan says, let's talk Kashmir, we are ready to talk Kashmir. That's not an issue anymore. The fact is that the combination of the PDP and the BJP there strengthens Modi's hand. He's the one that said, let's go ahead with the government. Yeah. So it is not that we're on the back foot on Kashmir.
That's an interesting point again that you make, Raj, because I want to get you in there, Mr. Pirzada. Mr. Pirzada, the world is changing. Kashmir is changing. You've got a BJP, PDP government there.
What is changing in Kashmir? The flags of Pakistan are being waved in Kashmir. The Kashmiris are dying in the streets of Valley. The number two, Pakistan has raised the issue of Kashmir at the international level. We have raised the stakes on Kashmir. We are putting pressure on you that you have failed to deliver on your commitment to honor the Simla agreement and resolve the issue of Kashmir. We are taking the issue to the General Assembly and we are taking it to various forums. We're not going to let you sit idle or quiet or we will not allow you to stonewall on the issue of resolving Kashmir. One thing is for sure, Pakistan cannot be bluffed anymore with these phrases of people-to-people talk, cultural delegations, all
Mr.
this nonsense.
Pirzada.
All those things are important. Hey, just a second. All those things are important. People of India and Pakistan must meet, but the core issue of Jammu and Kashmir is going to haunt you. We are not going to wait another 68 years. Pakistan is ready to talk and resolve
the talks will collapse before they start.
Mr. Dogra is saying that if you were in UFA, Mr. Pirzada, the talks would collapse even before they started. No chai pe charcha.
I think the talks,
you would not have chai pe charcha also.
And you won't have chai also.
It's a 30-minute so-called exchange of views and a exchange of complaints, against each other. There are no talks. You guys are just painting a very different picture. It's a very ordinary meeting with no expectations. I don't expect anything. Maybe you guys have some clue better than I have.
Okay, maybe next time you and I will have a chai pe charcha instead of the two prime ministers. But let's go to Smita Sharma. Smita, what are the expectations there? You track the Ministry of External Affairs. Are there any expectations? Is the ministry really in the know? Or is this entirely being driven by the Prime Minister's office?
Well, it is mostly the Prime Minister's office, Rajti, but, obviously for protocol's sake, the ministry is in the know. It's the delegation that is there, which has, of course, been formulating the foreign policy for India, which includes, of course, NSA Ajit Doval, along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar, and Sushma Swaraj, of course, is not there. But, I would, of course, agree with Mr. Tariq Pirzada here, because clearly expectations do remain low-key, and what is most important is we have to factor in that positions have really hardened over the last few months. This is a very difficult sort of a logjam situation that we are seeing at the moment. Pakistan was really upset when Narendra Modi went to Dhaka and of course said what he had to say about India's role in 1971. We saw that resolution being passed in the Pakistani parliament where all political parties who remember in the 2013 May elections had given of course a sort of a unanimous support to having good relations with India. That was the first elections where Kashmir was not an issue in their own election setup. Those parties, the PPP, the PTI to the PMLN, they stood together in parliament taking the lines which otherwise the military and the establishment in Pakistan has been taking so far in condemning India. So you were having this discussion earlier about these two leaders meeting along the sidelines of a multilateral summit. This is something we have seen from Yekaterinburg to Sharm el-Sheikh. Like, of course, the India-Pakistan trying to play cricket maybe in a neutral setup. We have seen, of course, these multinational or the multilateral summits and foreign neutral venues to be used as ice-breaking meetings. What we are at best expecting is perhaps the foreign secretaries to meet in some future date and try and chart out a way forward. But then again, the question will be if the Pakistan Foreign Secretary comes to India and they again engage with the Hurriyat, what will India do? So they'll perhaps have to wait for the UNGA summit in New York for a neutral venue for these two foreign secretaries really to come up with another meeting.
Okay, we'll wait and see whether the next one again is on the sidelines, this time in New York in the month of September, whether this is talks about talks or is it a substantive new engagement, a new kind of engagement that the two countries are looking at. There have been many false dawns when it comes to the India-Pakistan relationship, which is why it's best to keep expectations a little low. Maybe that's the only way that India and Pakistan will actually be able to take the dialogue process forward without the glare of the television cameras that tend to heighten expectations. Let's take a break. Back with plenty more. We expect the two leaders to meet in less than half an hour from now, where we are looking ahead to a meeting which is being seen as a potential icebreaker about 10 months after the two sides called off talks in August last year, 11 months since they called off talks. You know, Raj, one of the worries is the media itself, particularly in the age of 24/7 TV, where we build up these expectations, are going to be icebreakers. At the end of the day, is that part of the problem? Whether it was the Agra summit more than a decade ago, or now even a summit in Russia, that because of this constant glare, and because it's all done at the prime ministerial level, there's pressure on both sides to come out with something dramatic, even if it's just a joint statement.
Yeah, I think that's important in some senses, because if you look, what is the Indian public's anger? It's really the Mumbai issue. If Pakistan doesn't give us any satisfaction or relief on that front, whatever Modi does in UFA is not going to help. So I think at the moment what they will do is probably discuss some of these things, put it on the table and say, can we move forward on this?
But these were discussed last year. I thought when Nawaz Sharif came to India, the Prime Minister invited SAARC leaders, had a special meeting which went on for a long time with Nawaz Sharif. These things were put on the table. But so Indians will ask, the question that I started this morning.
But the dynamics have changed. Dynamics is that Nawaz Sharif is a far stronger Prime Minister that he started. There is consensus in Pakistan for an engagement with India. The military is, the army there in Pakistan is concentrating on Afghanistan. They may not want full normalization, but they say can go ahead.
But there is zero movement on Mumbai. There is India's minimum demand.
It is fairly easy for Pakistan to maintain.
Today was we want the Mumbai attackers to be prosecuted.
It is not very difficult for Pakistan to proceed down that line. I think both sides. Meanwhile,
it hasn't happened.
No. Meanwhile, Narendra Modi has also consolidated his position internationally. You have seen that in Jammu and Kashmir, which is one of his troubled areas, he has done that. He has demonstrated that in the neighborhood with a great deal of confidence, the way he went about in terms of Bangladesh. So he's also, and as he said, that he would like to be a global player. When I talked to him, he used the words that bombs is not going to help. Let us not deal with all these things. He is in some senses moving forward on a lot of these issues.
The same Narendra Modi who insisted that talks be called off because, as has always happened, the Pakistani High Commissioner meets the Hurriyat. I mean, no talks in the past have been called off because the Pakistani High Commissioner. So, kebab diplomacy that the Pakistani High Commissioner has was enough to call off talks. And now we say that we are ready to talk with you.
No, they do an alliance with PDP, allow them to fly the same flags in the valley. Now they are in alliance with PDP, who are soft on Hurriyat.
Has Narendra Modi changed? Has the situation on the ground changed in Kashmir or internationally, as Raj is saying, that Modi has suddenly become this leader who's more confident about the way he conducts diplomacy? What has changed?
Rajdeep, today, I think, Prime Minister, your strength has to flow from your domestic strength. If domestically you're embroiled, and surprisingly, or coincidentally, all 5 leaders of the BRICS have problems at home. So your grouping saying we are the future of developing countries, we'll engage they are no longer being taken as seriously as a year ago, and definitely not as seriously as 4 or 5 years ago when BRICS had just started. It is a different game. After the meltdown of the Chinese market, after seeing the sanctions against Russia and their standoff with the West, and the domestic problems that Prime Minister Modi is facing, I think today the grouping is more nervous men holding hands rather than great statesmen. Rather than great statesmen.
Is it nervous men holding hands?
There's a woman there.
There's a woman there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nervous persons holding hands.
Is it the Americans? We come back to that. Is it the Americans who are saying, look, the Prime Minister is coming again to New York and possibly could even go to Washington. We never know with Mr. Modi in September. Before you do that, we need you to resume this engagement. Enough of the two sides bickering and this tutu meme. You've got to live with that. You're going to have to live with a few things, but we want you back on the dialogue table. Maybe Mr. Modi doesn't want to admit that and cannot admit that publicly, but that is really what happened behind the scenes.
I know you've been insisting on that over the last 1 hour.
You've got a foreign secretary who was a former ambassador to the United States.
Well, that doesn't make any difference. He was also ambassador to China.
Yes.
But as Ambassador KCC said a little earlier, the situation around Pakistan has changed to its advantage. and specifically in Afghanistan. So Pakistan is much more confident today than it was 1 year back. Second, the domestic situation in Pakistan does not affect its India policy. Pakistani army and every civilian leader of Pakistan is one as far as India is concerned. So there is no difference between the Pakistani army and any of its leaders. Pakistani people may be different because there are different shades of opinion. But coming back to your point about American pressure, I think it is definitely there. And not only American pressure, even the British pressure. India has been concerned about British intervention, which led to ISI and Afghanistan intelligence agencies agreement recently. And that's not a positive development. Much more worrying is the Chinese direct pressure. Why is it that after repeated requests from Narendra Modi and after his urgings with the Chinese president in Ufa, they made it a point to announce to the world before Narendra Modi Nawaz Sharif meeting that we don't agree to India's request
on Lakhvi.
On Lakhvi. So there is a subtle message coming in from China, and I think it will be unwise to ignore that and to think that we are brilliantly successful with the Chinese.
No, but so the Chappan ki chhati has not worked with the Chinese, certainly. I mean, the Chinese continue to let's be clear, the Chinese continue to pursue their own independent foreign policy. It is they engage with Narendra Modi, reach out to him, but they certainly have a very special relationship with Islamabad.
Absolutely.
And that's becoming clearer by the day. We'll look ahead to that meeting. Let's take a break. When we return, a quick wrap of the other headlines, but importantly, we'll be going straight live to Ufa, where the two leaders, Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Sharif, will be meeting, as I said, 8 months after they last met during the SAARC summit in Kathmandu, where really the dialogue made absolutely no progress. Prime Minister Modi is expected to raise the issue of Pakistani-backed terrorism, the Mumbai 26/11 attacks, and the constant ceasefire violations by Pakistani Rangers. Remember, it was only last night that an Indian soldier was martyred on the border. In fact, early this morning, the army chief was there at that at the memorial which was paid to the martyr. Those are pictures that are coming in on the left-hand side of your screen, where the army chief was there, a BSF soldier being killed in sniper fire last night along the LOC. Okay, let's look at that meeting that is taking place between the leaders. And the big question, at the end of such a meeting, can we expect a joint statement that will list out 5 or 6 issues? We were looking at some of the issues that are being talked about, the possible of making it easier for multiple entry visas for Indian and Pakistani businessmen, something that's been discussed in the past as well. There's talk about resumption of cricketing ties between the two countries. Are those the easier, softer issues that the two sides can at least put out through a joint statement to at least send out the message that, look, we are trying to make some headway?
Well, let's hope some kind of a statement comes out, because if a statement comes out, that means that there is a slight movement forward. But in the Indo-Pak context, drafting a statement becomes a huge task, and especially getting the contentious issues in. From Pakistani side, Kashmir as always. From Indian side, terror as has been since 1980s. So if at all a statement comes out, it is likely to be very brief that the two prime ministers met and the talks were held in a cordial atmosphere. I don't think they will go into specifics, because then the drag starts. So let's hope for a statement, but we should be prepared for a no statement.
You know, you should be prepared for a no statement, but it's interesting. Manmohan Singh, Sharm el-Sheikh, soon after coming to power in 2009, and then the Congress party, in a sense, distanced itself from the Prime Minister. Do you see that happening with the BJP? Does the Prime Minister have the BJP on board? Or will I hear a day or two later some of the BJP hawks, the so-called extremists within the BJP saying, why is the Prime Minister talking to Nawaz Sharif? Does the Prime Minister have his party's backing on this issue?
Look, and where Mr. Modi is concerned, he is numero uno. There's no doubt about it.
He is the party.
He is the party.
Modi is
not
BJP, BJP is
Therefore,
Modi.
as I said earlier, he's on a very strong wicket. As regards a statement, the less said, the better on this matter. I would say that if you look at it, what is the great takeaways he can come out of this one? Even if things go wrong, he would ask, and say, let's do something on Mumbai terror. If Pakistan refuses, they're on the back foot again. It is in Pakistan's interest to move on terror because look at the attacks that they've had on this front. Then, internationally, his posture is, look, I made the effort. I called him first. Then I've called him again, though everybody back home said it was a come down, Jyoti and others, that, he had sort of made a huge turnaround on this matter. And I've gone ahead. So internationally, when he goes to the UN and other places, he looks far better. What is Pakistan's losses? Here is Nawaz Sharif, who wants to assert that his civilian authority, that he had been, ground by the military all this while. He comes back and he says, look, I've got some legitimacy now. Give me the chance to move forward on the issues I wanted to move forward.
Casey, somebody's tweeted saying Indo-Pakistan relations are like the cousin you don't like, but you have no choice but to greet him every Diwali and Eid. Is it
and
a bit
Eid
like
is
that?
Coming up next
and Eid
week.
is coming up. Is it purely ceremonial at one level that, is it just being a good neighbor? Two of you are meeting at a multilateral summit way away from India and Pakistan, which in a way is good because you would have otherwise hundreds of cameras there. You have fewer cameras there. You're meeting in a far-off destination. The two of you exchange pleasantries. Is it just about that beyond the point?
We got two presidents on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. They avoided each other. At the SARC meeting, first day, they avoided each other. Then second day at the retreat, they met, which means there was a possibility of meeting away from the cameras. Now, you have a third kind of meeting where they are at a multilateral or plurilateral meeting and they meet on the sidelines and meet after announcing it. Not a chance encounter.
But I get the example of Sharm el-Sheikh. You remember Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on the sidelines of a NAM summit meets...
he used to always meet. I don't think really...
But you remember what impact that had. Many believe that is where the decline or the retreat of Manmohan Singh started. He realized that he was trying to push an agenda with Pakistan. His party wouldn't allow him to. He gave up.
And also...
You believe Narendra Modi in that sense is in a different position as Raj says because he is the party. He can actually control the agenda. There will be no one within the BJP who will oppose what Mr. Modi does even on Pakistan.
Look, don't forget that when the Minister of State and former Army Chief V.K. Singh went to the Pakistani High Commissioner's residence, what happened? His own Twitter army of supporters went after him. So when he came out, he did a flip-flop.
Right.
Then he did those two famous tweets, which could be read two different ways. One was that he was questioning that he was forced to go there. Then, of course, he denied it. But you could see that when you are driven by social media, as even Prime Minister is, it is not just the party. The social media army, when it turns on you,
and this is a prime minister who spends an excessive time, I'm told, looking at
so
what
it's a double-edged sword. So that social media can turn against you because you fed it with a certain kind of
Because someone has sent me a tweet that Narendra Modi wrote when he was in the opposition, questioning the fact that Salman Khurshid was giving biryani to the Pakistani leader.
See there.
I could play that tweet today and ask the Prime Minister, why are you having chai or whatever they get in Ufa for breakfast?
Can I say also that, listen, I think this reaching out is not an embrace. I think India is trying to normalize the relationship with Pakistan. Each time, I think it was...
How do you normalize a relationship that is fundamentally... Is a fundamentally flawed relationship?
No, may I ask, Jyoti, what is
fundamentally flawed.
Jyoti, may I ask, what is normal?
No, I'll tell you what is normal.
No, please define normal.
Normal
this is normal. What you're having with Pakistan is normal.
Normal is that you don't call off Foreign Secretary level talks on a whim.
No, the missions are there.
Normal is that you greet each other. You sort of, greet each other politely.
By the way, those are pictures coming in Ufa. Just for our viewers who might be seeing those pictures, those are pictures in Ufa. But go ahead, Jyoti. Sorry.
So what I'm trying to say is that I think when the two leaders of India and Pakistan meet, we make such a big issue about it. And the reason we do is because in a lot of times, both of us actually don't behave very nicely towards each other, and I'm talking about the leadership. I think for the Indian government to call off Foreign Secretary level talks last year was completely unnecessary. Right. Now it's taken an entire year for you to just sort of return to this sort of, to ground level, to base level. And therefore now you have to start all over again.
Okay, the cameramen seem to be in a tizzy. The Russians obviously have better security than we do in this country, so they're being far more controlled about.
No, that's SPG.
That's right, that's SPG. But we're waiting for the two leaders to meet.
But the room is so bare. Just look at the room. I mean, it's got 4 chairs on one side and 4 on another.
No, that's okay. Come on. It's a room which doesn't have a view.
No views.
the dialogue, and the two of you, KC Singh and Mr. Dogra, will know this better when such meetings are held. Is it one-on-one, or is it the entire Indian delegation and the Pakistani delegation that has gone for the summit, which will engage with each other? It's on the sidelines. It's not a summit in the true sense of the term.
It can be both formats, that there can be one-on-one followed by delegation level talks, or there can be delegation level talks and then they decide to go into a room separately. But you are also talking about breakfast, what kind of breakfast they'll get in UFA. Normally, as Jyoti will confirm, in UFA you can also have sour yogurt. So let's hope this one doesn't turn sour.
Okay, that's the diplomat.
That's not a breakfast setting. That's
not a breakfast setting.
That's not a breakfast
clearly
setting.
a delegation level
meeting. It's a delegation level talks. Presumably, at best, you'll get some tea, Russian style.
But let me give you the example.
Yes, go ahead.
By the way, the Russian style tea is very elaborate these days.
Is it?
It's hugely elaborate with Vladimir Putin on the top.
What do they serve for breakfast? You know better than most. What do they serve for breakfast?
I know better than most on a lot of things, Rajdeep, but we won't go to that right now.
Okay, but we've got the two leaders meeting each other. This is the photo up.
So Nawaz Sharif is calling on the PM. So obviously we are hosting it.
They're both looking quite grim, Rajdeep.
Nawaz Sharif has put on weight since I last saw him, which must be the result of having too much of gajar halwa, his favorite dessert. And the Prime Minister also has put on weight, which must be the result of having too many cheese sandwiches. The Prime Minister likes his cheese sandwich, and Nawaz Sharif likes his gajar halwa. We've got Mr. Doval, the National Security Advisor,
and the Foreign Secretary,
and a few senior officials who are there from the Indian side, presumably equivalent officials also there from the Pakistani side. But this was the photo op between the two leaders, which is, and I presume once that's over, then it's over already. So the photo op is done. It wasn't as
there was no jappi pappi.
There was no elongated handshake of the kind that we saw when Mr. Sharif came to Delhi during Mr. Modi's swearing in May last year. But the two leaders once again now across each other and meeting each other. So this is the image of the morning for which we've been waiting, and this is the big story this morning which is coming in.
Very interesting. The Russians have put their thing at the back.
The UFA.
Russia.
Right.
You know, they want to make sure that they are shepherding it.
That's right.
I don't know why they had to put that at the back. It should have been in a sweet-like setting.
Well, the Indians
is this the second time that, I mean, as someone who's fond of history, is it the second time since Tashkent that an Indian and a Pakistani leader would have met in a Russian city? Of course, Tashkent no longer part of Russia, but former USSR. Do you know any other meeting where the two leaders, Indians and Pakistanis, might have met in the Soviet Union?
Yeah. You've had Yekaterinburg. You've had several meetings. You've had the BRICS
Pakistan
meeting.
was not there. Yekaterinburg was the BRICS.
There was BRICS.
BRICS, Pakistan.
I'm saying this kind of a sort of one-on-one meeting, possibly in.
It was another G20 or something.
Okay, so it's happened before. Now, I just wanted to sense, if you saw what happened in May of 2014, where the Prime Minister went out of his way to reach out to Sharif, made him out to be a very, very special guest who had come there. As KC put it, India has done the inviting, which is why the Pakistanis have come and met Mr. Modi. The fact that on both the occasions, in May and now, India has taken the step forward. Is that significant? Is that significant that we've taken the first step forward?
Rajdeep, let's also not forget that Nawaz Sharif came to India. That was a huge step for him. Let's also not forget that we cancelled the talks. The ball actually is now somewhat in India's court. We are playing it right back because we are the ones that said, look, we can't talk and do all these things.
So the reason I'm asking this, tomorrow Nawaz Sharif says, I want to reciprocate what has happened. I want you to come to Pakistan.
No, the SAARC summit is there.
Or I would like to reach out. Will that happen or not?
No. Let's get the context clear.
Yes.
Would Nawaz Sharif have looked the way he has come out smiling if he had refused to come here when all the other SAARC leaders were here? That was a big issue with
He was going to refuse. There was a lot of pressure. The army had said no. The Pakistan army had said to Nawaz Sharif, you should not go. Nawaz Sharif staked a lot of his political capital on that visit to Delhi.
And there is a feeling, after speaking to Mr. Sharif at the time, he felt that India didn't do enough to really back him.
Absolutely.
That's what he came out of that meeting.
Nawaz Sharif is a master manipulator of words. And please don't forget, Pakistan plays soft cop, hard cop all the time. So this military
no
thing,
one is going there with
this military thing, despite everything, they had authorized the attack on Herat and our consulate. So he came after checking with military that no more further attacks.
You're saying don't trust Nawaz Sharif.
No,
That's your,
Plus,
to what extent?
Trust
but verify.
Jyoti, 1 second. Rajdeep, we know very well the triangular formation there. You have the right wing, the militants, you've got the military, and you've got the political establishment. Now, if you do not deal with the elected leader, whatever kind of elected leader he is, you have them close ranks. So they converge with the military and you start getting... It is not in India's political interest to have the elected leader converge with the military.
Absolutely.
You want to keep them separate. It doesn't mean you give concessions, but you keep talking to him. And therefore, I would think we should have really let the foreign secretary go, because at that stage, Nawaz Sharif was really besieged by Qadri and by Imran Khan. By using...
So August was the big mistake.
That was a mistake because...
August was a mistake.
He was
this is an
feeling
opportunity in a sense to do some course correction.
He's
pull him
making
away
amends.
from the army.
This is an opportunity in that sense to do some
and he's
course
doing
correction.
it correctly, because Nawaz Sharif is far stronger than what he was. If you look at the recent by-elections in Punjab, it was his party that came back again.
No, his party...
And
I
secondly,
see that Raj, after having interviewed Modi, has been completely swayed by Modi's magic. It happens.
No, can I say?
Modi has the ability after having... But it's good. What you're saying, you're reassured that the Prime Minister, as you said, is doing what he told you in that interview, which is he's willing to take 2 steps forward.
Now that you mentioned that,
takes a step forward.
now that you mentioned that interview, I'd just like to read a certain part of what he said on Pakistan, right? Let's get to this. Sorry, just 1 second. Our effort at all times is to promote friendship with Pakistan. All I can say is bombs do not help. We have done enough of fighting. There have been wars, terrorism, but that has not got us anywhere. It is time we join hands to fight poverty. People on both sides will benefit. The vision, I think this is the most important, of cooperation, connectivity and contacts that are presented to the leaders of the neighbors countries remain very much on the table. So that's what he's looking for, cooperation, connectivity and contacts. That's the limit. And then he goes on to say, but there can be no compromise on our national security. So I think he's laid the ground.
Casey is calling it a flip-flop.
You see, then comes
Casey is calling it a flip-flop.
No, then comes Rathore.
I'm calling it course correction.
No, then comes...
You use whatever words you want.
Let me give you the thing. You see, it starts with invite here. Then you say the dialogue will be there. Then you call off the dialogue. Then after that, you go for SARC. You barely meet him. Then you go for UNGA, you give him the thing.
Cold shoulder.
Then you do Myanmar, you extrapolate from there. You have your minister say things.
Casey, what did Nawaz Sharif say in UNGA? Did you see the words that he used on Kashmir? No. I mean, he was way the other side. He was calling back for the referendum.
But he's going to say the same again.
Can I just hold you?
He will say the same again.
Gentlemen, can I just hold you for a moment? I just want to go to my Pakistani guest. In case they think that we are being inhospitable and not coming to them. Sadia Khan, leader of the PML, Nawaz, is joining us. The expectations from Islamabad today, Sadia, what are the expectations on the Pakistani side from this meeting?
Good morning from Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum. Obviously, everybody is looking forward for some good hopes from this meeting of both leaders, and you must have seen statement from our Foreign Office, and everybody is looking forward in some better terms that both leaders will discuss bilateral issues, and this meeting will bring them back on discussion table on diplomat level, on leadership level, and obviously on other things also. And we are quite hopeful that we'll forget all the previous things, all the past things, and we'll move forward positively.
Can I ask you specifically?
Last year, when Prime Minister of India invited Prime Minister of Pakistan on his oath ceremony to India, and we have accepted that merrily, and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif came specially for attending the ceremony. It was a big leap. It was a big initiative from Pakistan. But unfortunately, we could not move forward. But this time, we are quite hopeful, and we want to move forward. And I hope media on India side will portray a positive picture of this meeting, because here we are very much positive.
When you say positive, any specifics, ma'am, that you are looking at from a Pakistan specifically? Or you just want the dialogue to start?
I can't hear you properly.
Do you just want, is Pakistan expecting any specifics, or you just want the dialogue to start? That in itself for you is a positive.
See, that's very obviously, it's not a one-to-one meeting of leaders in Russia. It's a meeting of India and Pakistan. Prime Ministers of India and Pakistan, and everybody is looking forward, because it's very important that both countries are most important countries of Asia, and it's very important for region as well. And obviously you must have seen statement from American authorities as well. They said it's very important that both leaders should sit together and discuss the issues which should be resolved between both countries, because it's very much necessary for progress and prosperity in the region, because both countries carry very massive position in this area. And hopefully in Mr. Nawaz Sharif, Prime Minister of Pakistan's regime, and on the other side Mr. Modi will move forward, because I think, and everybody is realizing, and I have seen analysis of different analysts, they are saying Mr. Modi has realized the importance of talks between both countries, and hopefully they'll move forward and discuss all those issues which are main obstacle of peace in the region and good terms between both countries. I think we should move forward, and we are quite hopeful.
Okay, so the mood in Pakistan is hopeful. The mood in India, dare I say, is of a glass half empty or a half full, whichever way you look at it. Raj seems to see it as a glass half full. Diplomats, traditionally more cynical, because they've seen too much of India-Pakistan relations in the past, tend to see it as half empty. So let's take a break. While we finish our glass, we'll wait for the two leaders to have their chai pe charcha. Come back with just a little bit more. We'll hopefully hear from the two leaders after the meeting, though we're not very sure whether there will be any kind of joint statement at the moment. But at least the very fact that the two leaders have begun talking is a positive step forward. Is it a Ramzan gift or something more than that? We'll wait and see when that joint statement comes in, if it does.